So, welcome back to another video. This is UCMAS Auteuil, week 3. And this particular series of videos we're doing is for the parents to understand how to, one, manage expectations for their kids, second, destroy the limiting beliefs, and third, to improve their skill. And by improving their skill, you will improve their confidence naturally. One aspect that we saw during the competitions were the constant improvement from every student, also intentional improvement. But with that, coupled with it, we had immense confidence surge. And I would have to also add on to this is that we also enjoyed most during the competition times and how competitive the classrooms were. And yes, summertime is here. This is today, we're August 14th. But it is much more appropriate to say that without competition, it gets boring. It gets repetitive. It gets the same. We can't work on the things that we want to work. We can't improve on the things that we want to improve. We're just stuck in the same process. And so we're learning as well. We've been 5 years into this. I've been in this industry for about 11 years as a student to a teacher to now here where we are. It requires a lot of dedication from the teachers, not only from the students and not only from the parents, but a lot of dedication from the teachers and the educators to make sure that there is high competitiveness within the classrooms and not to overboard it and to make it way too competitive where it gets, I could say, one bickering each other, but to the point of only keeping it raw, keeping it real, and not losing any purpose or focus. All right, let's get started. Here's what we're going to cover today. As usual, values, principles, actions. Second part, I'm going to reintroduce the small friends in a different light. Then the initial exercises to work with, finger exercises. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok for more exclusive content. Obviously, share the course. As I say again, we are here to change the education system, and that's why we started this. We can't lie about it, because that's the reason why we started this. We can't hide the fact that we are limited to a certain amount of time per week with the students. But I believe that we're changing slowly. And not only I, but the rest of the whole UCMAS franchisees believe that we're changing the education system slowly by every single student. I have to recall this particular event that is going on right now. One of our students is so passionate about just doing the work, pushing further. He takes pages, he practices. We're in off season right now. We're in summertime. Have you ever heard a student or any of your children say, I want to go back to school, I want to go back to class, I want to go to this class again and again and again? A class, not a sport. Sports are fun because you're in movement. Video games are fun because you're distracting yourselves from the real problems. Going on TikTok, going on YouTube, I've been guilty of it, Instagram, whatever, Facebook. We're guilty of it because we don't need to use our brains for it. Our brains are in a very low status point, even when you're listening to someone talking like now, unless you're taking notes actively, and you're actively trying to think for process, pause, take notes, think, reprocess, reinstigate, and then push forward. Unless you're doing that, which I highly doubt, because I myself, I see that problem as well. We're not improving. We're not doing something that is valuable to anything that we're doing. We're not adding anything. We're not improving our relationships. We're not improving anything specific. We're just listening. We're not actively, I would say proactively, taking decisions to be better, taking decisions to change our behaviors, taking decisions to make things better. Now, let's come back to the point of this video here. The point I'm trying to say is when kids and people and parents want to push their kids, on one end, let's say the parents, but when the kids want to push themselves to continue to come after one class after the other, every single day without any loss of enthusiasm, it is outstanding type of, I would say, it's an outstanding energy that you would need that requires to do such a thing. And the system that we have in place right now is fantastic. It's fantastic. Is it the best? Not yet. Meaning it is the best as it could be right now, but we're improving on it. We're trying to make it more of a community as we try to keep it, because we believe that as a community, we all work together. And I've always said this particular message to every parent is that it's like a village. You have the elders, parents, you have the teachers or gurus and people who teach, like myself and the other teachers here. And then you have the older students and the younger students. The older students are the most advanced students. They don't need to be by age only, but also by the categories and the levels and everything that they've been improving on. They will in turn turn around and help the other students. And the other ones, the younger ones, or the ones that are in the lower levels, will find a way to help the older students or the students that are in a higher level. And by the way, a couple of days ago, we had a child who is also the same child. I had told him, because he was already advanced and there was some kids struggling, I said, you know what? Instead of me throwing myself out there and controlling everybody at the same, what if I told this particular child to go and teach them? Now, it's not perfect. I still have to overlook, because that's my duty to these students. But when you look at the overall sentiment, the kid who wants to push himself more had the ability to try, and he's only 8. He's 7 or 8. So he had the ability to say, you know what, I want to go and try this. Okay, I'll try. Okay, I'll push myself. And then he would turn around and say, I don't know how to explain this. And I say, it's very easy. You just have to do this, this, and this. So try this, and if it doesn't work, teach like this. If it doesn't work, go like this. It's not that it's easy. It just takes time and patience. So he got a little impatient. I told him it's patience. It's okay. It's part of the game. You're learning, they're learning, I'm learning, everybody's learning. We all have to be together. And that's what we love about this community, is that whatever ethnicity you are in, whatever language you speak, whatever it is, French, English, we could work together, enjoy together, and have a cohesive small-scale economy that allows everyone to help each other. Whether, even if it's a 6-year-old that picks up the papers and brings it to everybody, or the 15-year-old that comes out and helps every other person, or even that 8-year-old that helps a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old, because they're an advanced level, it is all part of a cohesive community, an ecosystem that works together. Now, is this every day? No. It's time to time. So, share this course. Let's start a revolution. And I've been saying this for around 7 years. For the people that know me, they know that in high school I had done projects about changing the education system. We're not in the job of teaching, we're in the job of, or at least I would say in the duty of changing people's lives. So let's do that together. Warning. I like to start it off like this. This is the next most important video. If you skip the video or you skip through the video, you will have skipped some important parts that might be minute details, but those are very important details nonetheless. So watch the entire video, don't skip, don't fast forward. Pro tip, watch the video in 2 times speed. If not, there are some places you could slow it down, but that's if you need it and you know how to gauge. So up to you on this, but watch the video, and I would recommend to watch it at 2 times speed or 1.5 times speed. All right, let's get started. We're going to start with values, principles, and actions. I reiterate this basically every single time because it cannot be mentioned enough. Consistent, daily, intentional improvement. Now I would have to switch up the words, but daily, consistent, and intentional practice leads to steady improvement and lasting mastery. I repeat, daily, every single day, consistent, having the least amount of interval time between the first set and the second set or the latter sets, and then intentional, willingly, le vouloir in French, willingly practice leads to steady improvement. Steady improvement, and we're just growing, slowly, we're going. And lasting mastery. Most people try to go fast, including myself, and then we hit a breaking point and we fall. Why? Because that means we encounter a lot of problems, but we're not equipped with the tools and mechanisms to make sure to overcome those problems or all of those problems. And so we don't particularly learn everything. We do recognize there's a problem, but we don't learn it. We don't learn from that problem, and then we fall. And once we fall, it takes us even longer to come back again. So don't make the mistake like I did, like everybody else who does, and try to teach your kids to take daily, consistent, and intentional practice. It doesn't have to be an hour. It does not, it can't even start with an hour. It starts with 10 minutes. It starts even with 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, and then afterwards during competition time, we can go up to 20 to 30 minutes, and some kids do 1 hour, and that's their desire to go and win. Understanding, automating, speed. Understanding the concept that is taught is primordial. Practice means improvement. Speed is the ultimate result of mastery. Understanding the concept is important. That's 60% of the job. 20% of the job is making sure that we could automate it with timer. And then speed. UCMAS core habits. Sitting posture and holding a pencil. We have to make sure that the kids understand that sitting means back straight, sitting halfway through the chair, legs not crossed, arms on the table. Holding of the pencil, as before, we hold by folding the last 2 fingers, keeping the first 3 fingers open and movable. Finger movements. We will only be using the thumb, index, and big finger. Let's use this terminology of the right hand. For now, only the right hand will be used in the practice. The left hand will be used for holding the abacus and the pencil if the child is left-handed. Let's do another a small introduction to small friends. We've already covered this, but let's go over again. It's a base of 5. Establishing fundamental logic. Direct versus indirect. I'm reiterating this because we must make sure we understand the basics in order to go forward. If we cannot directly add or subtract the bead or beads as a whole, for example, -4, move by block and not singular bead at a time. So we don't just do it one by one, but all at once, without any alteration of the symbol, plus or minus, we must then use a formula to counter the ineffectiveness of moving beads one by one, or the memorization of the additions or subtractions. Establishing physical observation. Abacus. There are only 5 beads in one column, 4 beads under the central beam, and 1 bead above the central beam worth 5. When we can't add any more beads under the central beam, we must use a formula. Or, in this case, we're going to learn is if we cannot take away the beads under the central beam, we must use a formula. Rational questioning. First question, can I add or subtract the number directly? Yes? Go on. If not, what's next? So, question of equivalence. We must not forget, especially in math, a very important term, equivalence or equal. We know the term equal because it's a sign that we often see. However, in order to understand how to do it, we have to also think of the other definitions that come with it. When we say equal, we also mean by we could replace it with. So what is the equivalence to the addition or subtraction of the number if it cannot be added or subtracted directly? Example, existing 8 on the abacus, and now we must subtract 4. Now, as adults, we may think that it is so easy. 8 minus 4 equals 4. It is only easy due to the amount of practice and repetition of the memorization of 8 minus 4 equals 4. Limiting beliefs. So let's go over this for a moment. You can only go as fast when you only base yourself on your memorization and repetition. It is not that repetition and practice are wrong. On the contrary, it is our second most important principle. We only allow the brain to push the limits of our minds when we actually change the mechanisms within. Nobody wants to stay stuck on gear 1 for the rest of their lives. And nonetheless, it is probably what happened to you, and it is exactly what is going on with our children today. Simplify the process of learning and focus on the most important elements. Small friend, base of 5. We use the base of 5 as our first step to figure out whether we can use the small friend. Since we are in the context of not being able to add or subtract directly in the section under the central beam, we then use the bead, the one worth 5, above the central beam. Equivalence. Now let's continue with the same example, existing 8 on the abacus and subtract 4. We can't do it directly. We must use an equivalence using the bead, worth 5, above the central beam. Now, minus 4 equals minus 5. We all know it is not equal, right? Minus 4 and minus 5. Sorry. And in order to fulfill the equivalence, we must add an amount. And in this case, minus 4 is only equal to minus 5 if we add 1. So, the small friend here, we use the small friends terminal due to the simplicity factor to teach students and keep the process simple. Take one hand, who's the friend of 4, take down 4 fingers, left over 1 finger. Therefore, the 4 is friends with 1. And vice versa. For example, we say who's the friend of 1? Oh, 4. Now, let's use the same logic, apply it to, let's say, 3. Take 5, your 5 fingers, and then do minus 3. So take out 3 fingers, 2 is a friend of 3. Vice versa, 3 is a friend of 2, and 2 is a friend of 3. The formula is very simple. And you might have recognized there's a slight change from last one. The last one, it was a plus small friend. So we use that when we want to add any numbers limited to 4, 3, 2, 1, we use a small friend. Now in this case, we're talking about the subtracting of the small friends, which is again limited to 4, 3, 2, 1, small friends being within the 5, the base of 5. So in this case, the formula is going to be minus small friend equals, which also means that we could replace it with plus friend minus the base. Follow the exact order. Now earlier I mentioned minus 4 equals to minus 5 is not true because it's not equal. Now, and we added, and if you look at carefully, the formula that I wrote is minus 4 equals to plus 1 minus 5. There's a specific reason to it, and that's because the flow of the abacus is important. We shall not break the flow of the abacus because we have to keep it simple. And I can't say it's logical because both ways are logical. We could keep plus 1 and then do minus 5, and then we could keep minus 5 and then do plus 1. But people tend to have that plus 1 on the second part just because of the continuation of the 5 and the 1. One number is bigger and the other one's smaller. just by looking at 5, and we all know that -5 is smaller than +1. But we have to stay focused on the movement of the flow because we are working with a tactical purpose, which is on the abacus and in the mental mat. We don't want to break the flow just because our guts are saying that, or at least our irrational mind says that 5 is bigger than 1, while we know it is -5. So, follow the flow, follow the formula, follow the correct finger movements, and practice movement at once and not two split movements. So we don't do, for example, in the case of +1 -5, we don't do +1 and then -5, or we don't do -5 then +1. We do it all together. +1 -5. One block shot. Asking the right questions equals more reasoning. And in this case, it's not replacing. It only means that we get that afterwards. So asking the right questions gives us more reasoning. And inherently, understanding is reasoning and having more coherent conclusions. And that's what we want our kids to do. The more they could think, the more they could have conclusions, the better their lives are going to be. I hear a lot of parents who are anxious, who they themselves are anxious, but they put it on their children, and they say, oh, my child is anxious at school. Hold on. It's not that your child is anxious at school. It's that you are anxious at school because you want certain expectations, and you are putting that on your child, and you're making it worse. Your child needs to have that deep motivation to push to learn. I recently had a child who told me the first day I realized she was very anxious. I could see it. I just sense it. We could all see it. It's like she's moving around, looking around. Yes, it's the first day. Perhaps you could say it's the first day anxiety. Sure. If you choose to be. It continued on the second. It continued on the third. And then we worked with her, and it's really just by talking to her and like relaxing her down and then calming her, breathe in, breathe out, work on that. And then as we worked, she then came out on the 5th or 6th class. She said, I really like learning. Mind it, we're in the summer. No kid should say that. Or at least with the culture that we live in, we're not allowed to say those things. If you say that, you're weird. But she said it. And funny enough, the whole class said it. It gives us a lot of motivation to continue with what we do. It is not an easy task, and we sympathize and empathize with the teachers that are in the education system in Quebec. But when a child tells you, I want to learn, or I want to push forward and I want to come tomorrow again, it is reassuring that we are doing something that is changing people's lives. That's what I can attest to it. So, minus small friend equals plus friend minus base. The base is always going to be 5 because we're in the small friend territory. Small friends are going to be limited to only 4, 3, 2, 1. You will see why. And then if the small friend, let's say, is x, then the friend is 5, the base, minus x. So for example, who's a friend of 4? 1. Who's a friend of 3? 2. Who's a friend of 2? 3. And who's a friend of 1? 4. Formula in application. Again, formula is minus small friend equals plus friend minus the base. Minus 4 equals plus 1 minus 5. Minus 3 equals plus 2 minus 5. Minus 2 equals plus 3 minus 5. And then minus 1 equals plus 4 minus 5. Don't forget, a very important point, make sure you use in combination. You don't use 1 by 1. If you use 1 by 1, you're going to be slow and you would not have gotten the full potential of your child to understand one step and then to go to the next one and go faster. All right. Initial exercises, finger exercises. This exercise helps students build muscle memory for the specific finger movements they will use throughout their training. Thumb, adding bottom beads. Index, subtracting bottom beads. Big finger, adding and subtracting top bead, +5, -5. Systematic approach. The exercises are designed to be systematic, following a specific structure. And then the combination of fingers. In this case, the minus small friend is going to be replaced with the plus friend, which is the thumb, and then minus the base, which is the big finger in this formulation. Plus with the thumb, and then -5 with the big finger. Journey. The finger movements practiced in these exercises are not just for isolated tasks. They will be used consistently across all future abacus and mental math exercises. This is part of the first fundamental building blocks. Daily practice with parental support. Include finger movements in their child's daily routine and to supervise practice sessions to ensure proper technique and consistent progress. It takes about 5 minutes to do this per day, and you will have insane results. That's what I could only say. When I say insane, it is insane. It is beautiful to see how amazing kids can get to this. Summary. Consistent, daily, intentional improvement. Again, daily, consistent, intentional practice leads to steady improvement and lasting mastery. Nobody wants to stay stuck on gear 1 for the rest of their lives, and nonetheless, it is probably what happened to you, and it is exactly what we're doing to our children today. Simplify the process of learning, break your ego, and focus on the most important elements. The combination of fingers in this situation here, when we talk about minus small friend, is plus the friend with the thumb, and then minus the base with the big finger in one block. Abraham Lincoln. Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Let's get to work. Thank you.